The recently released game Blueprints has been my most recent obsession. A lot of my spare time the last week or so has been spent either playing Blueprints or watching Northern Lion play Blueprints. This game is a roguelite at its base, but also has a deep puzzle layer that provides knowledge checkpoints like Outer Wilds or Tunic, which have been recently dubbed by some people as Metroidbranias. Blueprints takes its own approach to puzzles like that to create a unique experience. This is all topped off with a charming aesthetic that makes the game that much more pleasant to engage with. I've grown very fond of the game, so I wanted to discuss what has made this game stick for me, what unique game design principles it brings to the table, and some valid criticism that make this game a specialized high recommendation rather than a general one. I'm going to break this discussion into the two halves that make up Blueprints, its roguelite half and its puzzle half. Let's jump straight into the former. Blueprints' premise revolves around being a 14-year-old Simon Jones who is the new heir of the mansion Mount Holly Estate after their great-uncle's passing. However, to earn the full rights of the mansion he's bestowing upon you, there's one task you must achieve. Find the 46th room of the 45-room estate. You only have a limited amount of daily stamina to explore this mansion, and the rooms within shuffle every day. You also can't remove anything you picked up from the property at the end of the day. These rules are the heart of the roguelite experience, since you have to start each day with a blank slate. To navigate the mansion, you engage with the game's mechanic of drafting. Every time you open a door, you are presented with 3 room options to draft from. Rooms come in different types, sizes, orientations, and rarities. Drafting is where most of the game's skill curve exists. Early game, you're drafting as many new rooms as possible to learn what's contained within. I found it to be really exciting to learn the contents of each room and how they correlate elsewhere in the mansion. Once you familiarize yourself with most of the rooms, mastering your architect skills by knowing when and where to draft a room in optimal positions becomes a different kind of satisfying. Building yourself into a dead end is something that happens often when you're starting out and don't know what rooms help the best in the moment. It's a problem you'll find yourself running into less and less as you grow more accustomed to the game's systems, which in my opinion is a sign of good game design. Key items add another layer of complexity. Different rooms hold certain items like finding a shovel to dig up dirt piles or the sleeping mask, which restores 5 steps when you first enter a bedroom. These items give the game a bit of a Metroidvania feel since they open up new gameplay opportunities. This is also where resource management comes into play, which is the other area of skill that plays into the game's roguelite side. Like I said earlier, you have stamina, and it's measured in steps. Every time you transition rooms, you lose 1 step. This system feels added so that your movement always has purpose. It punishes mindlessly wandering around the mansion, but isn't much of an issue with carefully planned routes. Also, there are so many ways to gain steps, such as the various food items you can eat, so my runs rarely ended due to running out of steps. You also have gold, gems, and keys to manage. Gold is the most basic resource, which lets you buy other items or interact with certain services within the manor. Gems are required to draft premium rooms that have more advanced benefits, and a surplus of keys are needed alongside those gems because doors can be locked at any point and are more commonly locked the further in the mansion you are. Maintaining a steady surplus of these resources is a critical piece of success in this game. Not having enough of them to keep up with drafting is what kills my runs the most. However, this issue can get slowly suppressed by the permanent upgrades hidden among the game space. These include allowance tokens that let you start with extra money, discs that modify the functionality of certain rooms, and specific doors that stay unlocked after you unlock them the first time. Getting these permanent unlocks felt super rewarding and often recontextualized the way I engaged with the game. These upgrades also felt like they were given out at a reasonable pace. You have to put the work in to get them, but there's enough of them that I seem to run into one about every 2 to 3 runs. All these mechanics come together tightly and feed into one another exceedingly well. I wouldn't say the game has full-on build crafting, but there are moment-to-moment synergies between different game mechanics that are very rewarding when executed properly. I've had runs where I've placed green rooms in an order that led to a large yield of gems, so I could draft just about any room I wanted to, which made for some huge gratifying progress gains. The only part of this half of the game I have any qualm about is that some of the animations aren't snappy, like using the terminal, and it slightly hurts the pacing of the game. Otherwise, the strong synergy between all these gameplay components makes the roguelite adventure of seeing how far you can go in the mansion a solid game in its own right. To reach room 46, you have to engage with some of the puzzle elements, but it mostly comes down to your skills with the mechanics I've just explained. Upon reaching the room and rolling credits, you're aware that there are still plenty of mysteries left unsolved. Those mysteries are where the puzzle half of the game really kicks in the full gear. While I think this is a solid point you can close your time with the game, there's still so much more game afterwards that for some, this can feel like it's only the end of the tutorial. Quick disclaimer, there will be no direct puzzle solutions shown in this video. I'm only going to discuss the broad concepts of how the puzzles are made and how they affect the game design. When discussing the puzzles of Blueprints, I've seen them compared to Outer Wilds the most, which in terms of the puzzles themselves, I agree. The final stretch of the journey before entering room 46 gave me the same feeling as reaching the eye of the universe, and I was confident a game wouldn't make me feel that way again, so props to the developers for proving me wrong. However, I feel that there's a major difference in puzzle execution, that difference being that the puzzles are the only main gameplay loop of Outer Wilds, while in Blueprints, the puzzles are layered and intertwined with an already existing, self-sufficient gameplay loop. This is why I feel that the game's puzzles share more similarity to the Easter egg quests in Black Ops Zombies. Veteran players of that game are well aware of secrets and puzzles hidden in those maps, which are a bizarre staple of what is otherwise a standard first-person shooter. I've always wanted to see Black Ops Zombies' Easter egg design approached in other games, and I feel like my wish was finally answered. This is also why I think Blueprints revolutionizes game design. It evolves the way puzzles can be incorporated into other genres that usually aren't known for having them. There are two early game repeatable puzzles that do a good job setting the stage for how these puzzles are intertwined with the roguelite gameplay: the dartboard in the billiard room and the wind-up boxes in the parlor. The dartboard makes you do basic arithmetic whose order of operations does not follow PEMDAS, so figuring out its math rules is a puzzle in of itself. Solving the dartboard puzzle rewards you with keys. The wind-up boxes each have a statement that you need the logic out, which are the true and false ones, to get the gems that's in only one of them. Both rewards are important currencies for breaching into new territory for the core roguelite. On top of providing you with the resources necessary to progress through the game, I was impressed with how in-depth these puzzles go. They get more challenging the more you solve them correctly in succession, and that increase in difficulty is noticeable. For the logic puzzles specifically, I was surprised that I never ran into a duplicate after engaging with it over 20 times. I'm assuming there's a massive pool of logic problems and the game makes sure you don't get duplicates until you've exhausted most of that pool. Beyond these two brain teasers, there are loads of notes and objects to sleuth through and piece together the information each one provides into the bigger picture. I feel like this thorough investigating strongly complements the roguelite half because it adds more avenues for progress each in-game day. If I box myself in due to poor drafting, then I could still circle back and search the cavities of what I had previously built. These moments of learning meant I rarely had a time where a run felt wasted. A lot of the secrets also run parallel to the game's story. Like I said earlier, this game is about earning the right to your inheritance from your great uncle, but there's a lot to learn about him, the people that work for him, and the relatives you two share. There are plenty of dark truths that this family wants to be buried, which makes some of the game's grander discoveries feel a little less gamey and have more weight behind them. This game's soundtrack also elevates the atmosphere while combing through the mansion. They're simple melodies that do their job of adding ambience to the game world, but they nail that job very well. One of the tracks has this clarinet solo that is just soul food, man. When it comes to solving the game's larger mysteries, I found that puzzles work the best when you have multiple solving processes running simultaneously. If bad room RNG screwed me out of one thing I wanted to try, there was almost always something else I could pivot to. If you like to hyper-focus on one puzzle before moving on to the next, I do not recommend this game because you will probably be driven mad by the certain elements of the game being out of your control. That being said, there are a lot of RNG influencing mechanics that can mitigate some of this frustration. For example, the wrench can change the rarity of mechanical rooms appearing in the draft pool. I use this to make the boiler room common since its power supply is needed for a few puzzles, and I made the utility box rarer because at this point in the game I had no longer needed its services as frequently. Even after influencing some of the algorithms, there is still a bit of luck in your favor required to progress with these bigger puzzles. This is one of the biggest criticisms towards the game. There are people who can easily feel that their time isn't being respected when playing this game due to poor RNG. Not only are there plenty of puzzles in the rooms, but the rooms are also a part of puzzles. This means you need certain rooms in specific positions in relationship to each other. This is where the two halves of the game lightly compromise each other, and someone who prefers the puzzle half much more than the roguelite half might have their patience worn thin. On top of the luck needed in some key areas, some of the puzzles flat out don't land. There was a safe code whose logic to learn the passcode made my eyes roll. There are some forced waiting puzzles, which are almost never fun. I also had a be sure to drink your Ovaltine moment with one of the late game puzzles that irked me quite a bit. The game often likes to reward puzzles with another puzzle, and this long chain of secrets can be exhausting or exhilarating depending on the person. I mostly fell into the latter group, but like I said, some of them were too esoteric for my liking. Overall, Blueprints has some risky game design with its puzzles that are going to piss off some people, and they are going to leave Mount Holly bitter rather than satisfied. That being said, I enjoyed about 90% of the puzzles I did, which is a pretty good ratio in my book. Granted, I haven't solved every single one, but I felt like I've done a lot of them. I personally recommend tapping out of this half of the game once you start getting frustrated with its obtuseness, since the puzzles take a lot of time. You have to be in it for the journey rather than the destination. To wrap up my thoughts about this game, I want to reiterate that I think this game is one of a kind and has become a personal all-timer. The blend of roguelike gameplay and puzzle solving makes this game stand on its own 2 feet as something you can't really experience elsewhere. This game also has a few grating rough edges that can really rub you the wrong way if you aren't attached to the core of the experience as I am. I expect this game to garner a similar loyal fan base to Outer Wilds that will perpetually spread the word of how this game is a masterpiece worth experiencing blind, and a sizable number of respondents will put the game down in frustration, not understanding what all the fuss is about. This game's kind of on the brink of entering a wider audience, and I think it has the gameplay and aura to go the distance. It'll be interesting to see where this one stands with a bit more time under its belt. If you haven't played it, I hope this was interesting to listen to, and if you have played it, let me know what you think about the game in the comments. Either way, thanks for watching and have a good day.